In a microscopic community, Ichabod Argyle and his friend Graham Pease have obtained a custody battle and end up on a soul-searching journey across America.
Somebody write this.
Hi, and welcome to Somebody Write This, where we use a random plot generator to give us an idea and then brainstorm how that could be a thing somebody might want to write. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Jenny, and here to help us with our brainstorming, our guest today is Kylar Merrell. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kylar, when we first connected about you coming onto the podcast, it was because you were looking to talk a little bit about your newest project. So I'm going to just let you take it from there and kind of give us the introduction, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it.
Okay. I'm pretty sure what I mentioned was my comic Outlaw Country. It's digital only, but it's kind of my love letter to country music and to life in a small town. I'm from Oklahoma, sort of. It's a long story, but anyway, it's about three guys in a small town and how they come together and deal with loss and grief, and it becomes this big crime thing. It's like Breaking Bad meets Reservation Dogs, if you've seen that. And and it has an accompanying playlist because, like I said, it's kind of just like I'm a country music guy, and so I have a playlist that goes with it that kind of like captures the same themes of the book. And yeah, so it's all about that. And it's 6 issues, and the final 2 are going to be coming out this year. 4 of them are out now, and hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, number 6 will come out in December, and it'll all be done. This has been going on for I think 4 years now, 3 or 4 years. So it's finally nice to put my nose to the grindstone, finish it all.
Yeah, way to go.
Yeah. So was this, I'm always curious about comics because those have the potential to either go on infinitely or to really have kind of a specific arc. And so I'd love to know, what was this? Did you have an ending in mind when you first conceived it? Or was it just kind of like, I'm building these characters and I love them and I want to tell their stories?
No, it kind of just started because I wanted to do something with the title, which, like I said, is Outlaw Country. And I was like, I want to do something country music related, but Outlaw Country, but I don't want it to be about a band. And so I was like, how can I make it about an outlaw? And so I came up with this crime element, and then I had to come up with this backstory. And like I said, I've spent a lot of time in these small towns. My parents have lived in some very, very small towns in Oklahoma. I spent time in, some people wouldn't say it's very small, but it's pretty small. And so I kind of based the main characters off of different people that I have known, not directly, but just bits of the backstories and things like that have come from actual people that I've known, and lifted things and transposed different elements. But I always knew that I wanted to make it a Western, and along with that, without spoiling anything, I knew there was a certain way this had to end.
Yeah.
And so, nice. Yeah, I always knew it was going to be limited. I knew it wasn't going forever, but I was doing it weekly, and then I hit a pause, and I stayed off for 2 years. And now I'm back and going to finish it. But
oh man, so that's really cool. I don't think I've heard a lot of stories yet about people who the initial idea comes from the title. The title came to you first before anything else, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I have two comics now that you mentioned that I'm like, oh yeah, one of my other stories did the same thing. I was like, that's a cool title. And I was like, how can I go with that? And then I just worked it out from there. But yeah.
Nice. Maybe we should have generated the title first for this.
Yeah, it works.
I'm really fascinated as well by the musical connection, how this is so, it seems like the music is a really important part of this. So I'd love to hear you tell me a little bit more about how do these go together in your creative process, or in how you want people to be reading it. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you see that interwoven.
Yeah, I've kind of gone through various stages as far as how I want it to be done. At first I was going to change it and have a different playlist for each issue. And then I was like, okay, maybe no, I just need a playlist for each character. And then now I've kind of settled on, I have one playlist that's linked on the website where you can read the comic, and it's just a single Spotify playlist, and it just captures the vibe, the whole mood of different things. And if lately I've been listening to it a lot to kind of get myself back in the zone to finish it out. And it's I would say a combination of depressing and reckless are the 2 words that keep coming to mind for me. But it's just something to kind of listen to while you're reading it, or just to get an idea of the characters. And kind of the backstory of these characters is that they, at one time, were all kind of into the same genre of music, which I feel happens especially in smaller towns where people who you might not expect to be friends end up bonding over this thing that they all have in common. And there's like more details in that they were in a band and things like that together, not successfully, just like a garage band, but like just doing little things. And so it's part of like the history of the story as well. And there's a lot of references because the story opens with these friends and back right after they graduated high school, and one of them dies and he's in an oil accident. And so he's like prior to the story, he's like the kind of the glue for them all. He's the big country music nerd of them all. And so there's a lot of references to different songs and different artists and different like themes and things that bring it all together as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, we are going to transition into our brainstorming session, which, again, as a reminder, our plot that we're working with is in a microscopic community. Ichabod Argyle and his friend Graham Pease have obtained a custody battle and end up on a soul-searching journey across America. Which, first thing, I absolutely love these character names so much.
Yes.
They're yes. very distinctive. Ichabod Argyle and Graham Pease. But other than that, what's the first thing that kind of jumps out to you, Kylar? What is intriguing you about this so far?
Well, the fact that it says it's a microscopic community, but they journey across America just sounds like, how does that work? Like, because like for a microscopic, or like that would be like years of, you know what I mean? Like that'd be a huge journey. So I'm like, how? I don't know.
So it's like, is it literally microscopic, or is it like it's such a small town that we're going to call
it's
it
just the two of them?
There you go. That makes sense too.
Yeah, it could be metaphorically microscopic, that it's just like a tiny little community, like one of those like unincorporated towns that has like 100 people in it, if that,
or less.
Yeah, I was thinking like when I saw microscopic, I was thinking like Osmosis Jones.
Like, yes,
kind of movie.
Yeah. Which would be fascinating. Like you could, I love the idea of these extremely, microscopic tiny people trying to make their way across all of America.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how long that would take and what that would be doing. I'm also intrigued by have obtained a custody battle.
Yeah, I was like, that's a weird way to put that. But okay, I like, that makes sense. Like I can work with that.
What you got?
I was just going with they end up in a custody battle, and just one of them, I assume, has a child, either Ichabod or Graham, whichever one you prefer, has a child, and they have to get their child back and go across country. I'm not reading too much into this, if I'm being honest.
So they're not in a custody battle with each other?
That wasn't my interpretation.
Okay. No, I didn't have anywhere I was going with that. I was just wanting to. Okay, so yeah, so maybe it's like a situation where for some reason they have to go across America, to go find the child, or maybe it's like maybe it's like one of those things where those stories of judges giving like unusual sentences, and it's like you could have your child if you find yourself or something. I mean, maybe more concrete than that.
That could have legal precedent in our microscopic community. We don't know.
There you go.
So I'm now wondering about the relationship between these two. Like let's just say Ichabod has the kid. He's mentioned first. Let's give him the kid. Why does Graham go along?
I'm just picturing like a Dumb and Dumber situation, just best friends. He's just like along for the ride almost. He's just like, yeah, whatever. Like, let's just do it. Or maybe this is their court. One of their court mandated things. You have to take someone with you. I don't know.
To document it.
Yeah.
As a witness.
Yeah. Or he's also on trial, maybe, or not on trial, but like
he's also like community service. You have to drive this guy.
Something like that. Yeah.
You have to be the guide.
Your community service, your punishment is a buddy road trip.
Exactly.
I love it.
I was going to say Ichabod's punishment is he has to get the kid, and Graham's punishment is you have to drive him.
Or I'm wondering if like the two of them have like if it's something very specific, like maybe Graham has to maybe Graham's was a driving related offense that he has to put in like so many hours of like driving with a licensed driver. And so he's like, I gotta, I'm not just gonna drive around and around our microscopic community. That's not gonna get me enough. Let's go on a road trip. You have to go get your kid anyway.
I like that.
So why is, I guess I'm curious about the custody battle, like what situation they would be in where Ichabod is fighting for custody, but the child or the other parent of the child is not there.
Well, I was thinking about that and the word obtained that we had generated.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if it's where the custody battle was somebody else's thing to deal with, and then they died, and like Ichabod is the executor of
so it's not
whatever
necessarily
needs to be
his
done.
child.
Right.
He's trying to structure
And so it's like
somebody else's child.
Right. And so which leads to more having to go find the child because they belong to the whoever won the battle, or at least, or maybe just to assess the situation. I don't know, but like I feel like he just inherited it here, figured this out.
Or it could be like a next of kin situation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where like there's a a first cousin across the country who is.
Don't worry, little Lucy, Uncle Icky's on his way.
And then maybe it's a scenario where like partly maybe the kid is like 13 or 14 and has run away.
Oh yeah.
And so he's now gotten the rights to pursue custody for this kid and has to go find them.
Or were they stolen?
Ooh.
Or they were stolen.
Intriguing.
And
that
if so,
is intriguing.
why?
Okay, I don't usually draw the title this early, but I think we've like fleshed out the overall pieces of this, and I want to get a title now because I think that might help push us. I don't understand our title.
Yay!
So that'll be fun. Okay. So our title is Somehow an Undertaker Needs.
Oh my.
Grammatically, if you want to get rid of the and just make it Undertaker Needs, like the needs of an Undertaker, we could. I don't know that helps anything. Is this not custody of a living person? Is this custody of a dead body?
Custody of a corpse.
Yeah.
It does. It does just say custody battle. It doesn't have to be a child. It could be property.
They've won the right to fight to bury this person back in their microscopic community instead of the big city of LA where his partner wants to bury him or something.
I'm here for it. No, that's what I was thinking when I saw Undertaker. I was like, okay, they're just going back to get a dead body.
Okay, so that's how they help each other out. Is that Ichabod needs to go claim this dead body, but he doesn't have a vehicle, and Graham needs to drive a bunch.
Yeah.
So he's like, here, we'll borrow your truck that you got in trouble for driving illegally, and we'll drive it legally across the country to pick up this body and bring it back. So I guess my question with that then, the one piece that I think doesn't quite I can't figure out thematically how it fits yet, is we've played around with what this microscopic community means. But why is it significant that it's this tiny, tiny town? What is made different about the story because of this? Who are they because of this?
Well, I'm suddenly thinking that maybe Ichabod is the Undertaker.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But what is special about the person that died or the place where they need to be buried? Is it just to have them in their hometown?
I was thinking I don't know. I remember who mentioned it was like being buried back in your home soil kind of thing.
Right.
So what if? Because I'm thinking through this and I was like, a microscopic community would very likely not have their own, a tiny, tiny town wouldn't necessarily have their own Undertaker. They'd have to call in people from the slightly larger town next, 45 minutes away.
Right.
But what if this isn't a community in the sense of an actual town? What if it's almost like a culty community, or a commune or religious community? And so it's very important to them that they take care of all their people in their space.
Mm-hmm.
And Graham has, and they all kind of they have their own laws and their own rules. And usually the government next door kind of leaves them alone. But maybe, so Graham hasn't ever had a license because he hasn't ever needed one because he's just been using it in his area where they don't police him. And he finally, he crossed state lines and got caught somewhere doing something. And now he has to fix that. And so there's this interesting thing where there is maybe a very insular situation where they have never had to run into this. So maybe there is, and he's the Undertaker because he just like does everything for their group. And they bring people in from the outside specifically so they can, I don't know, maybe do their own rituals that maybe are uncommon for the rest of the world.
Well, that's the way my brain was suddenly going. What if the person who died that they're going to go get is somebody who left the commune?
Yeah.
But because they made promises or whatever, like they still have to be buried here, so you have to go get them.
That's kind of where I was headed to.
Yeah?
That's interesting. Well, and then I guess part of my question then is the happy answer for them to bring them back? Like, should that person actually be brought back if they left?
Yeah.
Well, isn't that
what I was wondering.
The soul searching part?
That they get over there and decide that maybe not?
Yeah.
Because like, Graham's the guy who's obviously been out of the commune the most. He crossed state lines and everything. So has he already been thinking about this kind of thing?
Maybe he had someone in his family who left as well. And he's been like driving outside the commune to visit them.
Naughty.
And so like he's kept it very secret. He had like he's not like made a big deal out of it, that they're not supposed to be leaving that often. And he has been, scooting out to visit them. And so there could be this really interesting dynamic between Ichabod, who maybe is very appreciative of the community and the safety devout. And the life that he has. He loves it. He's like, I have everything I need here, and isn't, until this journey, isn't capable of seeing how this could be a negative thing for someone to be wrapped up entirely in this community.
So that goes back to your question, Hannah. What is the community like?
I'm just picturing. Yeah. I'm just picturing like a small, just like a commune, just like a typical, like what you would expect of like, just little, not like huts, but just like little, almost trailer
simple
house
buildings. Yeah. Something that they can, because they can't get like, if they've
infrastructure.
Yeah, they can't. Well, and especially if they're not like following like building regulations, you can't bring in like a contractor to work on stuff. Right. But yeah, and maybe it's like this little community that's been there for like just a long time, and the nearby towns have just kind of ignored it because hasn't been a problem. They haven't seen a need to pick a fight with them or anything about incorporating or anything. So say microscopic, how many people do we think are there?
I was gonna say like 200 or so.
Yeah,
something like that.
That seems like enough that it would be. Yeah, they'd be able to survive among themselves with everybody being able to do something.
So Kylar, do you have any ideas about like what brings people in? What is this community based on? Like who started it? Or
I have no idea. I hadn't really thought that far ahead as far as like, I mean, obviously it's like somewhat culty and like, but like, I mean, and it just depends kind of how far you want to go with it. Like if you want them to be like a really like, be like a relatively, safe commune type area, or if you want it to be like a real, damaging cult type of vibe. Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking it's both. Like I'm thinking it's something where there is, because sometimes most things are not quite as cut and dried. Obviously, there's nuance a lot of times. But I think this absolutely could be a situation that some people love, not just because they've been brainwashed, but because it genuinely is supplying their needs for a community, for security, for purpose. But that comes with it sometimes a high element of control, where people who try to change the system are absolutely not allowed to. People who want to do anything different, absolutely not allowed to. And if part of so many of these, speaking from someone who worked with a lot of religious groups, so many of these communities that kind of shut themselves off are very much trying to avoid like the negative outside influence. And so that can lead to a lot of people shutting down and cutting off contact. And so I think that could be something that could be really interesting. Like I think maybe Graham leaves to go be with his person who left, whether that's a child or a partner,
or a person he left behind.
Or a person he left behind.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Ichabod chooses to stay. And it's not a sad thing necessarily, because he is, but he maybe has a better understanding now of the ways in which they can be controlling, and of how you need to work better with the people who are in your community and the people around you, that you can't just shut yourself off forever, because at some point you need to be able to let people go out and come back in
Right.
without shunning them.
Yeah. Depending on how you want to write it, it could have a sad ending or a happy ending or just a neutral ending.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's I was kind of thinking like a bittersweet type of ending that's like both of them go their separate ways, but they both know that they're like doing it for the right reasons, that they're both happy doing it, and so they're not upset about it,
and both understanding of each other, both being like, this is not the choice I would have made, but I hope you do well, because I think this is the right choice for you.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I kind of like that. It's a little sleepier than some of our plots, at least as far as but it could get really interesting, because who knows what happens on this road trip.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Especially with Ichabod not really being familiar with the outside world anymore.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Like, maybe Graham has a little bit more. Like,
right. Finally, I got to take the stupid hat off or whatever,
whatever they're wearing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that could be really interesting. Like, if it's all about like maybe Ichabod has been absolutely raised in this community, and Graham is a little bit more of a newcomer. Like, I like the idea that maybe he left somebody behind to join.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then found that he didn't want to completely cut them out of his life to be part of this community. And so it could be partly like him maybe he's going on a journey to the places that he has lived before and visiting old friends and introducing Ichabod to his old friends and his old family members who haven't seen him in like 10 years because he wasn't allowed to talk to them. And that kind of breaks down some of Ichabod's assumptions about the rest of the world.
So much interesting potential.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, and initially when we first talked about, they're going to collect a body, I was like, oh man, if you're driving back on a road trip with a body, like there's all kinds of room for wacky hijinks.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know that that's the tone of the story anymore.
Right.
But there's still something interesting about, like, I'm curious as to how far they, where they get to the point where they're like, okay, we're not going to bring this body back.
Interesting.
If they get out there and they talk to the person the dead person's partner, or or maybe they were out there for a long time and it was their children who were like, nope, dad would absolutely not have wanted this. Or did they bring them all the way back and they're like, oh, we did this wrong, we have to go back again.
I hadn't thought about them not bringing the body back.
Yeah.
And then if they don't, like, and Graham stays out and Ichabod doesn't, like, does Ichabod get punished for not?
I think that's got to be part of the story of him going back, is that he's going to go back and be like, hey, I chose not to do this.
Ooh.
Because ... and going back knowing that there's a good chance that he's going to get just like completely shut out, but that he hopes he can make this community what he thought it was, like the safe haven that he thought it was, by making space for this.
Okay,
and Graham's like, if it doesn't work out, you know where I am.
Yes.
Come and live with me if you need to, if you get kicked out.
Wow.
But that there is like a hope that he can go back and if he's the only person who deals with bodies, like he has some clout, he has some leverage to be like, this needs to happen. But that's kind of, I like that idea of him going back and being like, this is what I've learned. How can we use this to make our community better? Not to necessarily dissolve it entirely, but to make it a better place where it doesn't cause the pain that we are seeing that it has caused to some of our members.
That's the depth I was looking for.
Yeah.
That was the extra layer.
Ooh.
Really? Okay, I want to watch this TV show.
Yeah.
Right? This is very episodic. Like, this is all like, all these different places that Graham has lived on their way to, from wherever they are to, I'm thinking East Coast to West Coast. They're living somewhere in a Delaware or North Carolina or something. Right. And they travel across to LA. And then just all the little adventures along the way that slightly adjust Ichabod's understanding of the world that he lives in and how he relates to it. I really love this.
I'm here for it
too.
Like, I want to read this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then, listeners, we're going to toss it to you. This one, it's a little bit less wacky than some of our other ones that we sometimes do, but I like the slower ones. I like the ones where it's just like, oh man, that could be a really thoughtful and heartfelt and meaningful story.
Yeah.
So if any of this resonates with you, we would love to hear some of the places they go. We would love to hear more about this community. We would love to hear something about this. if any of this inspires you, let us know. Send us your stuff that you're pulling together from it. We would love to hear your ideas. All our contact info is at the end of the show, but you can get a hold of us and let us know what you're thinking about this, because I want to hear more about it.
Yes.
With that, we're going to go ahead and transition into our final segment, where we're going to recommend some stories that we think our listeners should check out. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to recommend a book that I read called I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Makkai. It came out last year. I've been trying to read through some of the top ranked books of last year. And it's a story about a woman who runs a true crime podcast and ends up going back to teach some podcasting courses at the boarding school where she lived in high school, which was also coincidentally happened to be the site of a murder of one of her classmates. And so one of her students in the present wants to investigate that murder for another. And so it's a lot of her kind of digging into her own past and wrestling with the ethical logistics of true crime podcasting, which I think is something that's really important to bring out and to get into. And I really, really like the way that it kind of unravels the story and explores all the different ways that this affected people back then and in the present day. And so definitely worth a read. I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Makkai. Probably my favorite book. I've read like 4 or 5 books from last year in this month, trying to catch up on the top ranked ones. And this is my favorite of the bunch so far.
Nice.
Jenny, what would you like to recommend?
I got a movie for you guys this time. It's called Pom, as in pom-poms. And it's starring Diane Keaton, who plays this apparently kind of solitary gal, and she has cancer, and so she moves into a retirement community, while she dies, basically. And this community is like HOA on steroids. A little, they have little rule, like it's required that you join at least one club, and if you don't like any of the clubs, you can always start your own. But then she tries to start her own, and then there's like rules against that. You have to have at least 8 people, whatever. But the club she starts is because when she was a teenager, she wanted to be a cheerleader, and she finally made varsity her senior year. And then like the week before the first performance or whatever, her mom got really, really sick. And so she had to quit. So she never got to perform as a cheerleader. But it's something that a time in her life that she really treasures. So she's in this retirement community, and she starts a cheerleading club.
That is fun.
Aww. And it's a little bit wacky. It's a little bit emotional, and it's just a good, light, fun movie to watch about these old ladies doing cheerleading. And I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
That does sound fun. All right, Kylar, you get to recommend something as well. What's something that you think our listeners should check out story-wise?
I've been looking at my shelf. I think I'm gonna say it's a graphic novel, but The Impending Blindness of Billy Scott by Zoe Thorogood. It's about an artist who's trying to get into a gallery, and she's out one night and an accident happens, and she finds out that she is going blind. Ooh. And it's all about her and how she deals with like her impending blindness, like the title says. And Zoe Thorogood's awesome. Her art style is amazing. She wrote and another book that I almost recommended called It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth, the one at Eisner this past year. But The Impending Blindness of Billy Scott, I'll say. And I think it's really good for anyone who is a writer or any type of creative person, because just the way the story ends, it reignited like a little bit of a fire in me almost. So like just highly recommended for anyone who does any type of creative thing.
Yeah,
nice.
Absolutely. Well, before we go, we want to make sure that you can plug your stuff. So especially maybe Outlaw Country. Tell us where we can find it, where we can find you, if you want to look for more of your work.
You can find me, best places, just look up Foreign Press Comics anywhere. That's on Twitter, FPress Comics, because they have a character limit. But everywhere else, just look up Foreign Press Comics. You'll find it. ForeignPressComics.com has all of our books and comics, and has a link to Outlaw Country, the playlist, all sorts of stuff over there. Subscribe to our email list. I give out free stuff on there. I was literally working on my next one earlier today. So yeah, that's just anything Foreign Press Comics. Just look that up and you'll find it.
Awesome. We'll make sure and put those links in the show notes so people can find it. I'm definitely going to have to go start reading this because this sounds great, and I'm definitely going to have to listen to that playlist. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kylar. I really loved where this landed, and thank you for bringing that out of the story.
Yes, thank you guys so much for having me. I really had a good time.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, folks, that is our episode. As a reminder, you can find us every other Thursday wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, and join our Patreon for bonus material. Today, we want to especially thank our patron, Nathan, for supporting us.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at WriteThisPod or on Facebook /SomebodyWriteThis. And if you've been inspired by this episode and have questions or comments or a bit of story or anything else, email us at somebodywritethis@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks, and we'll see you then.
And as they say, age does not give sense. It only makes one go slowly.